Welcome to What's Your Sign? I'm Julia Loken.
I'm Stevie Goldstein.
And I have to stop using my husband's deodorant.
No.
Oh, God.
What kind is it?
I don't know. I just pick up whatever when I run out. And today I was in my yoga class and I was like, this guy next to me stinks. Like, I can smell his male deodorant and he smells so bad. And the call was coming from inside the house, y'all. It was me, and it was my husband's. I feel like men's deodorant, it's like is there's a difference between antiperspirant and deodorant? Like, it doesn't work. It just like makes you smell more. Like it smells like the deodorant, but it like doesn't cover anything up, if that makes sense.
Yes, I have tried to use Steve's when I've run out, and it does not work for me. And I don't know if it's like...
But I'm like, is it working for him?
I mean, it must...
I don't understand.
Well, that's what I wonder, if it's like
the body must adapt.
Chemical thing, or if you just know which one you're using. And maybe... I also think sometimes with smell stuff, though, you are like... You just notice the new thing, or like the thing that it's trying to mask or whatever, instead of like you're used to smelling your smell with your deodorant. And so that doesn't stand out to you, but now you're smelling this new one.
Well, I'm thinking I like his smell. And so when he wears the deodorant with it, to me, that's like a pheromone thing where I'm like, I enjoy it on him. But then when I have it on me, I'm like, oh, this is absolutely vile.
Yeah. No. But there also is antiperspirant and deodorant, I think, are different. Right? And there are ones that have both of them. But I know when you only get like deodorant that's not antiperspirant, it's just the smell, none of the helping with sweat.
Right.
Yeah, I can't use any of Pablo's products because he also just goes for the cheapest Axe body sprayist. This has been and it's truly fighting over nothing. It's the tackiest fight one can have because I'm like, why do you pick soft soap brand soap? Can we pick something that's a little more aesthetically pleasing or transfer this into a different pot? I'm very about like, I want it in a different vessel then. And he's like, well, who cares? This was like really groundbreaking when I was like, you could put Q-tips in a thing that holds them. It doesn't have to be in the box. Yeah. Getting things out of the original packaging is I guess what I've been sent here to do in this earthly lifetime. But yeah, all of his are just too broy. Like it's just too smell. And I'm also been a diehard loyalist to my Dove cucumber. I think it's probably the only product I haven't moved away from since like high school. Like I've been using that as the deodorant of my lifetime. And even when there was like this might kill you, like, or this might give you breast cancer scares, which Julia, did we just talk about this? That news is fake. Was it you that I was talking to about?
No.
Aluminum and the antiperspirant, like this will get you.
Yeah.
Is like, actually, nah. I feel like that's about everything. It's like, don't do this. And it's like, actually, we found out it's fine. Or, update me when the reports come in. But I've never used his deod. But also, again, all of his stuff is truly the cheapest possible. There's no thought to it besides this is the first thing I saw at Target checkout, or I don't know, maybe if it smelled better, but
I use a unisex deodorant, or I guess it's antiperspirant, and it's not. There's a light scent, but it's not really scented. It's a gel, and I also have one that I use that's a natural deodorant that I use like if I'm not doing anything too crazy. And Scott used mine. And that's why I can't find mine. So I've been using his. So I think
there's been a lover swap.
Yeah, I really just have to be honest with myself that it's gone and get another one,
Yeah.
Well, it's expensive. Like I do think deodorant, and I guess I use antiperspirant now that I'm using an antiperspirant deodorant.
I feel like women's is always the one, like you're not finding it. I don't know. You have to go out of your way to get one that's not antiperspirant too, but maybe.
Well, they tell us like that we're disgusting animals that smell and all that stuff. Like I think Steph Tolev has a really funny joke where she's like, yeah, you guys think like women's vaginas smell like your dick reeks.
Yeah.
And like she goes off about it, but it's like, Steph is, she goes
Steph.
hard at it. Yeah. But it's really funny. And it's like so true because they do just tell us like, you guys smell gross. And it's like, oh yeah, we're the only ones.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think being aware of what you smell like as a woman is very like what you're saying. It's very ingrained early. I feel like the biggest fear in Earth and like a junior high area is being like, you smell like fucking tuna, like you smell like fish, like, and it's just like, what? Like, how do you even know? Like, why are you even in there, or what have you? But yeah, I don't know if anyone is a doctor and wants to let me know about the antiperspirant thing. I've heard mixed reports. I've heard it flip flop, so I'm just really banking on it not giving me breast cancer. Has been.
I mean, I feel like there are certain. Maybe we don't need to be using it all the time, but I'm a big proponent of like, let's use it. If we're going to be in a sweaty room with a lot of people, let's not like inflict our own, our own presence on others. Actually, one of the yoga studios I go to has like a list of rules, and that's one of them. It's like, don't come in here like unshowered or after like a run. This is a shared space, and like, we deserve to smell you at your best. Yeah.
Don't fucking stink, dude.
Come
in. Don't be a filthy barnyard animal. Speaking of Taurus season, speaking of just laying in your own filth or being at your
or smelling like a Taurus fresh is very spring flower.
Which signs are the stinkiest? That's actually a good. I don't think of Taurus as a stinky sign at all, and they should be, but they're not.
I don't think so either. I'm trying to think of who I know.
Every stinker I know is an Aries, but they usually are pioneers of the natural deodorant. Like they go for the, actually, if you muscle through 20 days of not using it, then your body resets and you don't smell anymore. I'm like, I again don't think that is true.
Is that true, or have you just gotten used to the smell after 20 days?
That's look, I enjoy, again, if it's consensual, a good other person's body BO.
For sure.
BO, absolutely.
I love stink. I mean, not even in a horny way. Like, I love the way my dog stinks in a very like a very sweet way where I'm like, oh, you little stink. Like,
that's your specific stink.
Yeah. People like their dog's paw smell like it's gross, but it's like, that's your little baby, I don't know.
Yeah.
Who's the stinkiest? I don't know.
Who's the stinkiest of them all? God, after I just declared Aries, every other sign's like, fuck. Is it?
I know, they're like, don't say our sign.
I can't say the controversial one because I can only think of one person I know who stinks, and I don't want to like out them right now.
It'll be too obvious.
It's all too. I don't know
if they listen.
I just said someone extremely specific, so I'm just banking on them not listening.
All right, I'll tell Scott. Jeez.
Stinky conceptually makes me think of Aquarius, fixed air, and that kind of like fixed air, that kind of like not getting the movement, the flow. But that is only, I am not saying this based on stinky Aquariuses that I know. I don't mean that. This is more just that's like where my brain goes.
So my person's a Leo. So I'm curious. Now I'm wondering if there's something. I think maybe Aquarius is an outlier in this situation, but thinking of fire signs and, getting hot and sweating.
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe it's fire. Not them, maybe it's really more of the situational thing.
Sure.
Yeah. I unfortunately had just more Aries come to mind. So I will stick there. But it wasn't bad. It wasn't like bad where they don't know. It was like, I like be natural.
I like
this is how I smell, and it was very proclaimed stinkdom.
Yeah, that feels very Aries to me.
Aries also feels like a sign that will hug you after the gym.
Yeah,
I'm not into that, but it does feel like they would do it.
A wet hug is coming for you.
Yeah,
and they want that wet right back at you. Oh, the stink. I mean, actually, I think this Taurus season won't be that stinky because I think there's not that there's not going to be much. There's a lot happening, but I think this might be the first kind of slower time we've had in a while. Like I feel like March and April, I know we're still gonna still have some Aprilness for Taurus season. Like that whole like March is gonna really pick up really did happen. Like it very much did happen astrologically. And I think there does seem to be a permission to slow down a little bit this Taurus season, which is like duh, obvious that's Taurus qualities, but like no, but literally reflected in the actual transits going down as well. How's been this like have you guys felt that speed up of time that a lot of people have been feeling in this like Marchy zone, March, April?
For Aries
Yes.
season.
Yeah, for like end of Pisces, Aries. I feel like I think the Saturn and Pisces March 7th date was the one that was always like hanging. And then like once Mars moved into Cancer, like there was just then all of the switches happened, which I heard a lot of people say, like, why is my social calendar all of a sudden filling up? And why like, oh, maybe not so much work stuff, because I think work as a large society is still very up in the air. But yeah, just in terms of I think people very literally springing back to life or kind of coming out of the weeds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely felt that. Or definitely just like a energetic shift. I don't know if it's necessarily fully sprung back to life, but definitely feeling the shift, definitely feeling some momentum picking up, and seeing that in others as well, for sure. And the time that it's like going quick.
Yeah.
I mean, as it always does, I feel like that is like the thing. But I think once we hit Aries season, it is like, oh, okay, yeah, like we're moving along.
Yeah, I feel like this whole year's felt pretty pressurized for me. So it's hard for me to exactly say it's like from March and April. I feel like, and I definitely had some family stuff in February that kind of compacted my schedule, and I'm still kind of playing catch up from some of those things. And then I have some other stuff going on now that's kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I'm living in two worlds a little bit, and it's a lot. So it's hard for me to like define where that started. But I do with trepidation welcome a little bit of more resting time. I do have so many Taurus friends and stuff, so I feel like my social calendar still will be heavy despite the retrogrades and things to come.
Yeah.
But hopefully some of those transits will help me make time to read my new book, or do things that feel a little bit more restful.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, I feel that with Taurus season because I also know so many Tauruses, and it is like it's also when the sun is transiting my 8th house, and I feel like it's always a time when I want to kind of like hide away and hole up and go really slow, but you can't, and kind of how that colors Taurus season for me. Not necessarily in a bad way, but just in a like, oh no, it's also a time, at least here, Western Hemisphere wise, when it's, spring and it is beautiful outside, and a time to be like, no, let's go and take advantage of this, even though you might not necessarily want to internally. It is still a time that's like nice to be out and about and enjoying spring.
I mean, this is very champagne problems, but it's like I feel like March was the return of like, let's do this happy hour, this, and I'm like, I almost want to be like, we have time. Like this will like it just feels like or at least for me, like everyone got like let out of their cages and then wanted to do everything at once, and now I'm having to like say no, which is impossible for me, and to like set like some sort of pace. And yeah, I mean, Taurus season is the best season, so I get why it would be very full. As if you guys didn't know, obviously me and Lisa are Tauruses, so it is our time. And yeah, it's Venus time. Like it's still, I think, a reminder of feeling good and connecting with who, what, where you like. And yeah, I think this Mercury retrograde, I don't know, I'm seeing like this astrological year in these chapters, and I think right now this is like the sub chapter of slowdown before I think our next big one being Venus retrograde, which is going to be like, I feel like back to these values and who we are and what we're doing, what we're saying, kind of pinpoints of the year. And of course, we don't really know until we're doing it, and we shall see. But should we look at the first week of our Taurine season, which starts with
starts on the heels of our
right after the eclipse,
our eclipse in Aries, which is the first of this eclipse series that happens on the 19th, a solar eclipse in Aries at 29 degrees and 50 minutes. So not far after that eclipse happens, we get the sun moving into Taurus at 1:13 a.m., at least here on the West Coast on April 20th. We love that.
20,
and
baby.
Right away in the morning, we get a square from the sun to Pluto, as we mentioned in our Pluto and Aquarius episode. At least for the beginning of the year, we're going to get an aspect to Pluto at the beginning of every season, since it's at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And this ingress is no different. So we get that square sun to Pluto at 0 degrees and 20 minutes of Taurus and Aquarius, starting us off right after the eclipse. I mean,
every ingress right now is going to make an aspect to Pluto. I mean, I don't know if we really count, the ones right next to it, but for the most part, the major aspects will be happening fixed signs, and air signs will be trines, and then you guys know how the rest of it works, right? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's like the first time Taurus isn't getting affected by Saturn in Aquarius, but just switch that out for Pluto and have your way with it and see what that feels. So this will be the first time we're not feeling that Saturn lessony pressure, but then also a very new influence from Pluto. So we shall see. It's like very bing bang boom of like rolling off the eclipse, moving into Taurus, then having a square from Pluto, and then the next day Mercury retrograde. So it does feel like a little like getting your bearings or something, or knowing how something works or what have you. Lisa will have a nice Mercury retrograde birthday. So
yeah.
Do we normally have them in Taurus time? Probably. I feel like they're always like is there a rhyme or reason of when the Mercury retrogrades come in terms? I know they move through the elements, and I know we're all in Earth this year.
Yeah, it hasn't been in Taurus for a little bit, but it'll happen close to usually the season of the sun, because Mercury doesn't move that far. So if it happens in November, it could be in Scorpio or Sag season, I think.
Right.
But I think it'll be happening in December, likely this year, January. Maybe January 1st, I think there's one. So that'll be the Capricorn one. Anyway, it doesn't move too far from the sun. So I think they do somewhat match up with the seasons, but not always.
Oh, yeah. I'm just thinking as it moves through, because will next year be fire? What? It seems like they move in these elemental shifts. I always wonder if that's the case typically. I think we'll have one in Virgo too. I think it's hitting every Earth sign this year. But yeah, so starting out really with some maybe things starting, things ending. But I think that which we're gonna have Mercury retrograde pretty much all of Taurus season too. I mean, it doesn't go direct until the 7th. Is it? I thought it was the 14th
or 5th.
It's the 14th.
Yeah,
it's the 14th. That late?
Yeah, it's super late. It's 6
it's
around.
At 5. I was like, it's at 5 degrees is what I'm thinking of. Okay,
so it's pretty much all of Taurus season is gonna be colored with a Mercury retrograde. So I think it's always a good reminder, especially with Taurus, maybe if it's money things or job things or practical things, getting the house together, freshening up the resume, turning back in. It doesn't mean you can't do anything new, but of course, astrology just has been here to say double, triple check things, or it could be a good time to go back to old contacts, or just the retro, the RE is to return. So where we can kind of look back and go to.
I think the last one we had, it transited into Capricorn a little bit, and we had kind of discussed this idea of, I think it was a very rainy time here in LA, and we were having a lot of like flooding happen and things happen, and we were kind of discussing as a group, the three of us, that like it was putting those structures to the test in that way. And so I think with it happening in earth signs and in those more practical tactile signs, it is figuring out, talking about, finance or relationships or those kind of Taurus things. It's not necessarily means that, you look one day and your bank account's at zero or whatever. It's just issues logging in when you need to make a transfer, things like that, where we're putting the system to the test. We're seeing if this, and I think, with the recent bailout of Silicon Valley Bank, I think that is one of the things we might look towards. I mean, I don't know if that means, I don't mean to doom and gloom anything. I don't know if it means anything, but that's one of those things where it's like, well, you put this financial system to the test and we see what the results are of it.
I think also thinking of that square to Pluto, right before we station retrograde, and thinking of, just the larger conversation at hand of tech issues and how that's having an effect on real money, resources, whatever that is. And then kind of, I also like this as like thinking of that square to Pluto coming eclipse, square to Pluto, and then Mercury retrograde, of going like, okay, how can we kind of like supplement and solidify what's going on, go back and do things. We've had a lot of shakeup. What maybe had we put by the wayside during this time because we were going like, whoa, I can't believe this is happening, or whatever. Not again, seem not to doom and gloom and be like, oh, this is going to be so disorienting, but thinking of those things as being like, oh, whoa, that's a big change. Now back to doing some of those day-to-day things, and a kind of having that as like but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. We still have regular, chores and food, and got to keep money in the bank.
Yeah, well, I mean, tiny aside, this Pluto and Aquarius we've been experiencing has been quite newsworthy. Maybe if it's not literally like this is what Pluto and Aquarius is doing, but at least in the United States, we've had a lot of major news going on in terms of Trump getting arrested, and which is rocks, and the Tennessee 3, and like still never ending gun violence. And it's like, I think it just feels like, and I feel like we've been saying this for a while, but revolutions take time. Like it feels like the jig is up, and it's just like a matter of time before then it's like, but then how does this actually go down, and how does this actually take place? And I think maybe it is disrupting systems in ways that we haven't yet. And I don't know, like, again, I'm not a psychic. I'm not saying that that's what will happen, but that the collective energy, which Pluto is in Aquarius, which is about collective consciousness. It's hard to ignore. It's hard to ignore those things that are, you're seeing like these really impressive, which I feel bad for, high schoolers, putting their fucking lives on the line because their lives are on the line. So like it's like a job. I guess it is like, I think there's meat there in terms of like the job that we still have to do. And the week ends with Mercury sextiling Mars in Cancer too. So I think that there is something like lovely about that. Like, Mercury or Taurus and Cancer are very loving signs at the end of the day, and they do want to have connection. So I think that there's, I don't know, it just makes you think of the phrases like we're more alike than we are different. And so hopefully this is a good time of recognizing where we're all trying to just do life here. They're like, Earth is like a group project. It's kind of hard. And we just need to be in communication about what's been frustrating and hard for us, because I think, again, we do have more. Most people want generally the same things, even if you're totally different political ideologies. We actually do want mainly the same stuff.
It's interesting too, because we also have Venus at a midpoint on that day as well. So I think it just kind of speaks to this like zeitgeist-esque feeling of like, oh, a global community, like we've had this, and it's happening, the Venus isn't really making aspects to them, but it's just interesting to see that happening. And maybe it's that collective sigh of relief, or, collective, like you're saying, watching these kids or any sort of news that is just these days, it feels like, oh my God, this can't be happening. Everyone you talk to is like, this can't be happening, but yet someone's still committing the crimes. Like, you know what I mean? So it's
there was like an interview with this guy who was the neighbor of one of the recent mass shooters, which, like, which one? It's like, yeah, there's too many. Pick you could tell from his like interview where they're like, do you think that this would have happened? Or like, was this surprising? He's like, it's impossible to say this is surprising anymore, because yes, how they were as a person, of course, I wouldn't think this, because who could think anyone could do this? But we don't know. And also, it doesn't matter how sound of mind you were or whatever. Like, also tons of deaths happen from gun accidents as well. Like, there's just too much death by guns. So it was not to say that that's this, but I think, like, I know what you want me to say. Like, I know that this like is like a perfect like news story for you, but like, who fucking cares anymore? If it's like, have we not had enough of these, like, the perfect crime, or like, this situation should have never happened? It's like, it's just not unique, and it's just annoying and repetitive. And I don't know, we'll also have like Mercury on that day too, with Uranus. Uranus is still in the mix in Taurus season. We're not out of Uranus influence in all of the Taurus energy. So,
and I think day is the 24th, in case we didn't say it.
Oh yeah, right? The 23rd.
I have okay. It'll be both.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a time change thing too. So check your, check your local ephemeri. But yeah, I think that there's a lot. That first week of Taurus season feels very related to collective communication. And also, it's a good reminder too of like, it might not be the best time for a lot of conversations. Like, I was talking with a friend about conversation I had with another friend, and I was looking at the calendar. I was like, maybe I'll wait even longer. Like, maybe I will put that on ice, because I just don't know how it will be received. And like, look, and sometimes conversations have to happen when they have to happen, but I think it's always good to know we are going to be in the foggy lens of Mercury, and on the low side, Taurus is kind of stubborn. It might not be able to fully hear everything that's being said. So there might be a need to really express, with Taurus being very throat ruled and vocal, but then also like, not always the greatest time with Mercury retrograde. So, but that's going to be basically the whole Taurus season with Mercury retrograde until May 14th.
And then after that, we'll still be in the shadow. So it's,
exactly. The whole Taurus time is colored with a communication, little speed bump, which I think could be good. Like, it could be a good thing to have too. Like, Taurus does want to stop and smell the flowers and reflect and move slowly and move intentionally. So
feels like make sure we're getting it right, not missing anything. And so we're not going to have to do, I know retrograde periods are a time when we are maybe revisiting and redoing things and reorganizing, but it is, to me, also maybe this time of doing things so we don't have to revisit this again. Like, let's put some shit to bed. Let's, get this there. Obviously, there are things that we have to do over and over again, like laundry and dishes and that kind of stuff. But I mean, that there's something about Taurus to me, and like effectiveness and wanting to get things done no matter how long it takes, because it's worth doing right. And I think having this retrograde period for that can be in conversation, that can be in reorganizations, revisiting things. But I think there is this idea of like, no, we can't move past a thing until we've fixed it, until we figured it out. So let's work on it.
I also feel like this Mercury retrograde speaks to me in a anticipation sense, and I don't want to talk on it too long, because I know we'll have an episode probably coming up about it. But especially with Mercury like not getting to Gemini where it feels comfortable, I think there is this like, I find it frustrating to, you're almost home and you have to like turn around and go back and get that thing, because like, it's going to get stolen if you just left it there, or whatever the like value the value part of it is, where it's like, oh, I left my computer on that park bench, or you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so it's one of those things where I think it can be frustrating. Mercury's not the most comfortable in Taurus, but it is like good at slowing down. So maybe there is a balancing act that we find there in anticipation for Mercury headed for Gemini.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like
And
that.
we'll have Venus and Gemini until what, May 7th. So they'll be in mutual reception too. So they'll like, there is this still conversation happening with Mercury and Venus with these Taurus Gemini of, wait, what's happening? Like, it just feels very like, wait, is this working?
It's one of those game shows where it's like you're blindfolded and I'm having to tell you like
totally
how to do
Mhm.
something on a micro scale with tweezers or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're doing like Amazing Race together, basically.
Yeah.
And they're like, they work, but they also like would rather be doing the different role. Like that person that's good at navigating, like you said, is doing the flip. And yeah, and I think it is just also where I feel like Taurus and Gemini can be like, I got it. It can be maybe being like, can you further explain what it is that you're actually expecting from me, or what you think that how this should play out or go, or any of that sort of stuff. But yeah, so kind of like active first week. The second week looks a little more mellow. Maybe it will be settling more into Mercury retrograde as well. So it won't be as
Mhm.
like, shocking as that change into retrograde, but there's nothing too, I'm just looking ahead. I mean, there's nothing
We have a
too
sun
wild.
sextile to Saturn and a Venus sextile to Chiron on the same day on the 25th.
Yeah.
That I think is nice and kind of speaks again to that same thing. Like we're getting a little
Grounding.
bit of a different Saturn relationship, and a little bit of a different Chiron relationship too, where we've been having conjunctions previously, and now we're finally getting Taurus, Taurus Sun and Saturn in a easier aspect. That what does that mean? Who knows? It depends. But I do think that this kind of continues a little bit of this gentleness from the, I don't know, the outer planets to me, having a little bit more gentleness while we're having retrograde. Again, and not to keep talking about the retrograde, but I think that's like the thing that's in the background of all of this too, where it's like, yeah,
it's a big deal.
Crossing this feels like, we're crossing some things off of the list. We're getting some things done. We are, again, it's maybe not the sexiest, most invigorating kind of energy, but it is like, your thing got canceled in the morning, and so now you get to finally you have time to finish these to-do list kinds of things, and that feels good. And while that, again, it's like not oh, whatever, and then maybe that also can help, let's reprogram some stories we have about ourselves and our value in being able to have some accomplishments kind of thing with that sextile to Chiron. I think that there's some healing and some gentleness available to us.
Totally.
On that day. We also have a square to Chiron from Mars later in the week, which I think is, again, kind of maybe more, while it's a tense aspect, that to me is also kind of asking us to continue to be gentle with ourselves and continue to like do something out of love and care. Could that also be, Mars in Cancer wanting to kind of sidestep something or kind of go at something less directly? But I think that it also could be like, I don't know, again, kind of motivating instead of self-deprecating. It's nurturing.
I think that just everything you just say made me quickly Google. I was like, wait, what deacons rule which weeks again, of which sections of Taurus. And I think it's all really aligning. And from till the 29th, we have it's Venus decan. So like coming from that place of Venus things and of feeling good. And then, then we'll move into a Mercury decan. But I think there's so much life afoot. So I think that this is a good callback in of where we feel safe and where we want our lives to go, or what things interest us, or like, I don't know, we do have the time to do the things that we want to do. And sometimes it takes that slowing of time with this. I think with that, with Saturn, like you're saying, we're finally feeling Saturn's influence in a very different way, since we're still learning what Saturn and Pisces aspects and things feel like. And I think it just feels like it's okay. Like it's okay,
it
like
does
to do what you're doing and at the pace that you're doing it. But also if you're not feeling okay, then what can we be flexible with?
it does feel like we're able to kind of move things around a little bit more, and we don't have to be so strict with our time. Not
Yeah.
to say that there isn't still much to be done, but it does feel a little bit more like, hey, there's this amount of time in the day, fill it how you like, fill it, get things done, but time isn't linear in the way that it has to be done in this order or whatever. And I think it also feels like that within that there's also kind of like, the task that you've been putting off because you thought it was going to take forever actually only took 5 minutes. And then you have the whole afternoon to like finish the task and take that walk and enjoy yourself. And how does that then make you set up for the rest of the week going like, oh, well, maybe I can accomplish a bunch and I don't have to be so taskmaster on myself. It feels like there's like time jumping available within that too. And then at the end of the week on the 29th, we have a Mars sextile to Uranus. Again, that kind of like gentleness, but that like, oh, this is a pleasant surprise or whatever. Again, maybe not. Maybe this is also in the context of a retrograde, car troubles, whatever, these things working in concert with each other to place obstacles in our way too. But there is something to me again about this being like, no, there's some, I don't know, pleasant surprises when we're getting things done, or maybe we are prepared for this surprise that then lets us respond in a way that we weren't expecting of ourselves.
Yeah. There's like that, all these like really, because sextiles are lesser trines, if you will, right? It's still a happy, harmonious, they agree with each other type aspect, but sextiles like feels like a little nudge of support. Like it's not the full like trine, all systems go, like you're amazing, which, depending on what's aspecting or which planet, you get it. But like sextile is just that, like those little like moments you notice of like when you just feel like you're on the right path, or this feels good, or I even think of like Mars with Uranus sextile. It feels like a new approach too, like a new outlook of how you want to move through the world. So I think that, again, everything is coupled with, we're in Mercury retrograde time, which is great for reflecting and great on taking stock and great on seeing how far we come and where else we want to go. So I think that's always going to be the background music that's sort of playing, and very appropriate with Taurus with music, with like great, could be, I have a lot of like little road trips planned during this Taurus season, which I didn't plan them to be Taurus season. They just happened to be in Taurus season. And of course, I saw Mercury retrograde and I was like, oh no, do I do things? And I was like, wait, yeah, Mercury retrograde's great for little road trips and things that are shorter and things that are visiting old friends or going back to old places or trying, maybe doing something new in an old space. But yeah, there just seems to be a lot of like gentle support the following week of on the second week of Taurus season. My weeks go to Sunday. I don't know if you guys start on Sundays or Mondays, but have the old calendar debate. But to me, weeks begin on Monday and end on Sunday. But I know calendars like don't think that.
I don't know how I do it. I feel like Monday. Yeah. I feel like I energetically end Sunday, begin Monday.
I don't know. I'm a hospitality person. I feel like it's my weeks don't go that way.
But like if you were, because like I have like a wall calendar I write, and so I physically write and start Monday, and even though like GCal will always like start Sunday. Do you know what I mean? Like
I do.
Where is like the physical block of time? Beginning.
Yeah, I think mine's just off. Yeah.
You're like, it's Thursday, bitch.
Yeah, like on Friday is like the busiest day. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's completely like, like, yeah, I understand the week doesn't start on Friday, but like,
yeah,
for me, it's just never going to feel like Sunday, Monday, they're the same day.
Yeah. What is time.
Should
And
we
then
move on?
yeah, then the
Yes.
third week we start off on, well, if you start your weeks on Mondays, we start Monday with Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. So like we shall yeah, it had a taste. I mean, it will still, I mean, it moves slow, so it's gonna be retrograde
Mhm.
for a hot minute, but we're moving back. We had a taste, and now outer planet transits aren't, or retrogrades aren't at like a Mercury retrograde, or not, they're not like any personal planet retrogrades, but I think it's still information to have as once we've had a lot of Pluto Aqua movement, and now it's what will it I can't even really imagine going back to Capricorn now, which is kind of weird to say, but like it just feels like that's no, like we are in a new era, bring in the new era. The idea of dipping back seems wrong, like in some sense, but I know it has to happen and will happen, and we'll reflect on it. And we'll have the Sun conjunct Mercury that day as well. So back to a lot of Mercury action since Mercury is retrograde and moving very slowly.
It's also happening at 0 degrees. I mean, I don't know if that's so necessary to note because it is a Pluto transit, and like you said, it's one of those outer planet things. But who knows if you had a major influence from the Pluto ingress, possible revisit of that because it's still right there at 0.
Yeah. I don't know, I was just
Yeah.
thinking about it moving back, and just like not getting ahead of ourselves. I don't know. Or like recognizing that it's like not, I don't know, maybe that feels to me like maybe the thing that I just keep coming to is like the AI stuff. And I feel like that's like a really a conversation that's been picking up speed, and people are scared of, and they have been before Pluto entered Aquarius. It's definitely been something that's been, forecasted and projected out. But I don't know, something in that realm to me. Maybe we're going to get some news of something not working quite as well as we think it is, or other impediments to that maybe moving quickly, or maybe not. But I don't know, there's something to me about that being like we're getting the preview, but it's not too late to be not taking other steps. And I think that Sun Mercury conjunction happening that same day too is like, yeah, but it's still going to take day in, day out kinds of work steps, either to like there isn't, it doesn't mean abandon hope and action, or it also means like, yeah, we're keeping on the trail where we're watching these things. I don't know.
Some new thing I kept seeing coming up in various states is about, which I didn't know that this would be on the table, is about not like people under 18 legally cannot have social media accounts.
Social media.
I was like,
there being restrictions.
I didn't think about that ever being a thing ever, because like as a definitely under 18 person who used the internet for all my life, like I couldn't imagine being told you can't have MySpace back in the day, or you can't have this, especially since so many kids actually are making their money through it too. Like, I don't know, like that's going to be a real interesting discussion of what's banned and what's not, which I know is really random about it.
I know that there is a country, and I don't remember which one now, where, and it might not have gone through, but I think it was on the ballot. There was a smoking ban, and it was like, not only can you not buy like cigarettes or vapes or whatever, but like if you're born after a certain year in the 2000s, like you'll never be able to. Like where it's just like they're completely doing away with it, like
no more smoking,
by not letting them start, kind of thing. Where it's like, and obviously it's not like kids that are already like 17 or so. It's like they're starting it at a very young age, so it's like they'll never have access to it. And I don't remember if it was, I want to say it was like Australia or New Zealand, and I possibly like, I don't know if it went through or not, but it was like some option that they were voting
New Zealand passes world's first to pack a lot of bans smoking for next generation.
Yeah, so I mean, some of those things are really interesting, and talking about putting age restrictions on things and how do we phase things out, and things that we know are bad. And I think especially like with the gun control conversation, I think we figured out that like despite my wishes, saying that we're just going to take away all the guns it's not going to go through. It's not going to go through Congress. It's not going to go through with the NRE and like whatever they do, pack their things with other measures or however they do it. So it's like, what are the steps that we can take, such as, putting a limit on how old and whatever, and like phasing it out to where, maybe we have the consequences of our own generation, but aren't affecting the ones to come.
We aren't continuing to perpetuate this as a necessary part of culture.
Obviously, it's not the same thing. I'm not trying to say.
No, but I mean that makes sense of going like, no, we're not just going to say, oh, this isn't healthy, so we're gonna have you use your own discretion. We're also saying like we would like to see this not be part of life at some point. We know you can't imagine it, and we're not saying we can't undo the structure of society as it exists currently, but we can go like, these people that have never known this don't need to also learn that this is a thing you could do. Let's try to stop it.
Yeah. And we're seeing a huge, even with like gun control and reform, like they're not even saying like we're going to take your guns away. They're like, please just check someone's background. And now
I know.
Yeah, it's like actually
maybe no AK-47.
Yeah, but you can actually carry a gun with no ID and no nothing. And it's like,
what?
Dude, okay, cool. Like extreme flex for this. But yeah, I think that idea of like future affecting is really interesting, especially again, we're in the early phases of Pluto and Aquarius. Lots of shit's about to unfold. Lots of conversations are happening. And we are in a societal collapse. Anyways, we also
I was gonna say that also just reminds me of the move back. I think it is important for us to remember that Pluto is going to retrograde back. We've talked about this in our Pluto Aquarius, and to not take those things as signs that we aren't making forward motion just because it isn't happening overnight. Pluto is huge, monumental shifts, and sometimes we don't even know what those are, and to remember that, sometimes even L's in the category are also signs that, we are grasping on to something that is on its way out, and people are trying desperately to hold on to something that so many people clearly want fixed. And so while that might not make us feel safer or better in the short term, while there's, moves that are like, yeah, concealed, no, whatever, like free for all, that is also a desperate move by people who can see that this is also like that desperate moves are required.
Totally. I was gonna say this is there's a couple asteroid movements also the next couple days, which take it or leave it, but does just some fun updates. But we'll have Juno move into Gemini also on May 1st, and then the next day Pallas move into Leo. So we'll have some movement of the asteroids. Juno is typically our asteroid of marriage and of deep relationship. So maybe if you're dating, this might be a really great time to connect with someone. I'm thinking maybe it's also because I'm watching Love is Blind, like what a trade wreck of, verbal connection is quite important. It's not the only thing, but if you've maybe been valuing more of the Taurian status, comfort, whatever things, maybe having that, your brain a little more stimulated, especially as we have Venus in Gemini. Feels very supported to have Juno link up where we also have Venus for the last few days before it moves into Cancer. And then Pallas also being this asteroid of intelligence and like very like fem, like there's a lot of fem asteroids afoot moving. So it feels like a great time to step into power and say the things that you're looking for as well. Or maybe seeing them where that is in your chart could be a little nice refresh if you want to dig into some asteroid stuff.
Well, I think with the asteroids, the important thing to remember is as they're ingressing, they are making aspects to Pluto. So again, Pallas and Leo, Pluto retrograding right at that 0-degree Aquarius. I mean, I don't know if it'll get to Capricorn by then, but there'll be an opposition by degree. And with Gemini, Juno Gemini, it'll be trining. So, just something to keep in mind that maybe the Juno energy feels a little bit easier. Maybe the Pallas one feels a little bit more two sides of something.
Yeah, we'll have just official date, which I'm sure we'll talk about come Gemini season, but Pluto will move back into Capricorn June 11th. So this is our last little ride with Aquarius for some time until next year.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's also my birthday, which is a very important national holiday that everyone
That's
should
the best
celebrate.
day.
Send me
And I
some
mean,
money. I'll take it.
hell yeah. On the 4th, we have Venus active, with a square to Neptune and a sextile to Jupiter.
Mm-hmm.
Neptune stuff has been afoot for a minute, and I think this is maybe going to be reminiscent of some of the Mars in Gemini period for us in terms of like bringing up some uncertainty or reminding us or just check in there about whatever came up for you kind of during this retrograde. It's happening at that 26 degrees, which is where Mars was at for a while.
Mm-hmm.
But I think also then we're moving. It's not there for long. Venus will leave leave that 26 degree and move 27 where it'll sextile Jupiter, and I think kind of cutting through some of that fog too. But I think that in the context of everything else going on, kind of like not being adaptable with that Venus and Gemini of kind of like feeling one way and how much we can kind of maybe change by the day's end,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think when we have like such support from Jupiter that wants to live Moss and go big and do it up with Venus and Gemini that also wants to be social and engage. I think Neptune squares are a good like this might not be the full information. Like this might not be the full scoop. Oh, your guys are all gonna move in together. That was like a really good drunk plan, but like when's the lease up? Like, so I think that there's like don't stop dreaming. I'm a big dreamer. I'm like, you could arrest me for the amount of times I'm like, let's buy property. Like we should do this together. And then hopefully then I have that follow-up conversation the next day where I'm like, I would actually logistically like this to happen. But if it's something you're really banking on, then it feels due to have the like, is this just Mercury retrograde drunk talk, and like excited Jupiter fueled talk, or is something really not the full picture? Because yeah, Neptune is the, take a shot, drink the fog, is the not full truth. And it doesn't mean that they're trying to lie. It's just, we can talk on the excitement and fuel of Jupiter and Aries and Gemini and Venus. So might just be worth seeing if anything feels really blown up, like what it actually looks like in the light of day, maybe even after Mercury goes direct after the 14th. Especially considering we were like right before the fucking eclipse, like the literal next day full moon lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So hey, I mean, we're last haul of our Scorpio Taurus eclipse season. We had the taste of Aries, and that, which is our first beginning of this new eclipse cycle, and then we're going to be wrapping out now. Hang on, don't mind me, I'm pulling up Susan Miller's eclipse timetable, which if you guys don't use that as a reference, it's really, I'm so glad that she just made it so easy to look at. But I need some dates now. I'm like, when did all this shit start? But yeah, we'll have the full moon eclipse in Scorpio, so who knows, we shall see. I think that could be a really fun night, actually. Like it feels very Friday, Venus day, Scorpio. Like, I don't know. I don't think in eclipses you have to go hide. I think it can be like a really time of almost like letting it all hang out in a very primal sort of way, like in a very like regressed in a like consensual regression.
I think I'm going to skip going out the house that day. I've had a traumatic experience with these last Taurus and Scorpio eclipses, and I think I'll let it see itself out.
No, it's my birthday party.
Oh no!
That's why I'm saying I'll have to
send you a
hours
or something.
If I call you from jail, please like bail me out. Yeah. Let's see. We had it. Just a quick eclipse reflection. So the first lunar eclipse we had in Taurus was November 19th, 2021. I can't even tell you what the fuck was.
I got engaged. I can tell you.
Oh, right.
I know them all by heart. You don't have to look up I can tell you every single
All right. What's the next one? Give me the next one.
I know there's one on, I want to say May. There might be one in between.
There's two.
I want to
So we
say
have this.
April 30th
Yep, you're
and
exactly right.
And then
May.
Solar.
I was like,
May 24th.
Yeah.
We had so we had April 30th, solar eclipse, and then May 15th, the lunar
15th.
eclipse. So that was the last.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that was the last full moon Scorpio lunar eclipse. Then we had the solar eclipse October 25th. And then the lunar eclipse in Taurus on November 8th, 2022. So yeah, 2022 was just all Taurus, Scorp, Taurus, Scorp, Scorp. And then we'll be wrapping it up. But not until, again,
and our last one,
fall.
I believe, is October 28th.
Yeah.
Of this year for the Scorpio
lunar eclipse in Taurus.
Lunar. Yeah. I was like lunar. I was like meant to say Taurus Scorpio.
Yeah. So, moons and Scorp, maybe think back on these dates and what was popping, what wasn't popping, what's starting up, what's finishing out, and we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've still got more Taurus season.
I know we've got more Taurus season
review, so
but
definitely check out our Patreon.
Oh yeah,
for more info on the lunar eclipse in Scorpio, 14 degrees and 58 minutes.
Yes. So Sunday, May 7th, we get Venus moving into Cancer. We love to see it.
Sounds
maybe.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Possibly. Also, quick before we go there, only because I'm on an asteroid kick, we will have Aries on the 6th moving to Virgo. So we're having a lot of asteroid movement in Taurus season as well. And Ceres is the Earth Mother and the goddess, and back to Virgo, which feels really taking care of ourselves. And with Virgo, we can see that with truly the body and routines and health and things like that. So maybe if this Taurus time is extra indulgent, it might be a kick to start meal prepping or something.
Are you saying that the hangover from your birthday party?
Yeah, maybe we're going to Erewhon the next day. Okay.
Maybe inspiring people to button up a little.
Yeah, I think that will be the last shebang before everyone's like, okay, I'm going to go in my hole for the rest of this Mercury retrograde. Thank you very much. But yeah, May 7th, Venus in Cancer.
May 7th, Venus in Cancer, which again, I think is going to be, it's not going to be aspecting anything solar at that point. But I do think we are like sign by sign in a sextile relationship with Taurus. I think that again, coming after the eclipse too, and thinking of that as kind of a some sweetness, some tenderness, some Venus is Venus kind of stuff as maybe a balm from whatever is being, even if it's just the electricity of the eclipse. I don't think we always feel the eclipse we don't always know what happens for us on the eclipse on that day, but definitely in that time leading up, we are feeling the kind of intense energy. And I think that having Venus move into Cancer there right after might be sweet, and then maybe even, like you said, just permission to kind of stay in and do a little homemaking.
Yeah, it also makes you think of like girl power and maybe connecting with friends or like family, or maybe if it's been a lot of work or things that we have to do, if it feels like Venus in Cancer is like a real ushering of like making that space and time for the people that are important to you, or maybe even having the space to express that a little bigger. If it was very jokey during Venus and Gemini time, the Venus in Cancer I think gets a little more serious with its things it's declaring. So that could be again Mercury retrograde, so mindfulness. But
continuing go ahead.
It's the final sign before we hit our Venus retrograde sign of Leo.
So, totally.
Savor this moment before we get all of the DMs of I'm sick of Venus Leo.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't even think about that. Isn't Cancer the sign taking stock of how everything's been going in the relationship so far, of like, is that working? Is this not? So not to say that Venus retrograde will be breakup season, but you know what? You're going to see a million articles that are going to say that, and it's not necessarily untrue. So I think of what is feeling like home and what feels safe will definitely hopefully be loud, and what doesn't might have you reflecting and reevaluating when we do get into that Venus retrograde time when we switch signs come summer.
Well, and we're also seeing,
Oh my god, then the
increased
next transit is very that too.
well, it's like increased anti-trans legislation up for votes, and continuing our abortion access and all of that too. And so I would hope that this might be some positive movement in some of those things. I know some of the things have been overturned, but there also have been, I think Idaho made it a felony for abortion at any point, also a felony for aiding in someone getting, whether you are living in Idaho or not. So I think we could also see an increase in some of those things going through, and kind of a response to, I think the asteroid movement to me speaks to not necessarily positive outcomes, but certainly outcry and community, outreach, uplifting, all of that sort of thing, as we are continuing to see.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have to be doomy, but things will probably get worse. I mean, we've been on a pretty steady, slow decline for some time now. And I think the only thing that comforts me is that there's more of us than them. And, it might take huge action. And I think that there's something there about expressing what you're feeling to who feels like family and who you feel safe and protected around, and not having to compromise that, even though that's hard to put yourself first and to put yourself in space, making sure that I saw this term recently. It was called I'll have to find it. It was called scab something. It's when you keep returning to people or places that hurt you. It's like picking the scab or something. And I think that hopefully that Venus Cancer time with some Taurus Mercury retrograde reflection might be you don't have to actually go to the places that continue to keep picking your scabs off and making them bleed again. You can go away and heal, we hope.
I don't know if this is just repeating exactly what you guys just said, but we're moving towards that Venus and Leo, Venus retrograde. So it's when those legislative things are taking place, that Leo season is going to be the time where we appeal and fight back and those kind of things. So if we are seeing things come up, just remember it's not the end of the world. We're going to keep fighting, and it's not just I know it feels Venus in its little shell, and like you're saying, tuck away and hide. And it's that's not, don't ever go out for the fight again. It's let your wound heal until you're whole, and then come out whole and give it all you got.
I think that was something different. It was an add-on. It was an add-on to the point.
That's all new info to me.
Well, it is inspired by the seeds, so it felt like it was maybe repeating. I don't know.
No, it was. I think that's a good reminder. It's not. And something my therapist said in the uprising with George Floyd, and I wanted a therapist with an activist background, and that's who I picked. And she's awesome, and she's a Libra. And I just found out my couples therapist is Gemini, so I am very air supported at this time. But I was talking to her about protesting this. She's like, "Do you protest a lot?" I'm like, well, here and there, but right now it's a lot because we have to do a lot. And she's like, "That is burnout. You will be burned out, and people have to be mindful of kind of what we got back to with the scabs and taking time. And it'd be great if we could, push our bodies to the limit around the clock, but that's not going to be a sustainable way to fight what we're fighting." So I think it made sense, and that was what we had to do at that time in summer 2020. And that's not probably, I wouldn't be surprised if things of that happen again and how we turn out. But yeah, shit takes, again, revolutions don't happen overnight. They take many series of events and series of movements. So
I've been seeing a lot of TikToks recently too that are reminding us that and it's funny because it's a Pluto cycle too, but that 20 years of things, and that we are both in the beginning of a 20-year period, but also in the middle of a 20-year period too, just anything too, where it's there are things that this is in many ways a peak, or I don't know.
Yeah, we're still in a time. We're still in a time. I mean, we still get styrofoam for takeout and stuff. We have so
there's
much
much
still
much
still
to go.
A ton to change. Speaking of change, Well, on May 9th, we'll have the sun in Taurus conjunct Uranus in Taurus. Hello, remember me, Uranus in Taurus. So if change has been on the brain, Uranus is a great catalyst for that. And especially because we're, Mercury retrograde will be days away from ending. So it might be feeling like the game plan of returning back to maybe some new intentions or things that you want to see shifting. It feels like like that problem solving sort of time when we have the sun and who we are in harmony, or maybe it's not harmony, but in direct conversation with our planet that wants us to take on something new or to change things that aren't working if they haven't been. So I think if there are signs to change, that might be really loud on that day.
I think this might be a day too where we recognize where we have changed and we have implemented that. Looking at, I know we're not talking a ton besides the eclipses and new fulls, but I really like the moon. There's a moon in Capricorn trine Mercury in Taurus. There's a moon sextile to Saturn. And then at the end of the day, we have this moon square to Chiron. And I think that having that like Mercury retrograde support from the moon kind of encouraging us to do things differently or see things differently and recognize where we may have broken some patterns or where those patterns don't fit us anymore. That, I don't know, moon square to Chiron to me, again, is kind of like a pattern breaking or a wound, not necessarily because it's like good, but being in a situation where, and feeling differently about it, whether that's like the way that you handle it or just a different perspective that day. But I just think there's a lot of supportive energy around that sun Uranus conjunction for, I don't know. Yeah. Recognizing some growth, maybe, especially because we've had Uranus and Taurus for a bit. And while it might not be aspect now, it's, aspecting different places in different people's charts. Maybe it's left and you've had your Uranus time, but I think like, we're more familiar with that energy and kind of in the context of Mercury retrograde too, and those supportive aspects from the moon. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. There's a lot to, it feels like, this is like early pod for us. Like Uranus moved into Taurus in 2018. And I feel like so many things have changed and a lot have for the better. Like, like we do have to count the wins as well and count where we've growth and where we've growth, like where we've done the work and where we're continuing to do the work too. So I think it's just an invite to keep evolving. I feel like there's something one of you said earlier, and since Uranus has been like fucking with my life for some time now, even like it's also a mixture of with your sweet sister-in-law Stacy with human design. I keep thinking of projector stuff too, waiting for the invitation of like, okay, what things can I can plan this 4 days out, like versus 4 months out. Like, where can I leave space for invitation, or where can I change even like how I want to be approached? And I think Taurus can force its way through anything. And I think the Uranus has been for me personally, with reflecting on projector stuff, it has been a real invite of like not forcing. And I think that with Uranus too is very like, where do we not force as much, especially since we've been talking a lot about Saturn and Pisces, which is also a loosening of the grip and just seeing where things sort of cosmically connect or come together a little more organically versus by force. Which then we'll have a sextile with Mercury and Pisces. Not the last one we'll have in this season, but I don't know if you guys have anything before May 12th, but that's the next bigger aspect that we'll have. And on that same day, we'll have a trine with Cancer and Saturn, which that just feels nice. That just feels like it's I don't know, like I keep coming back to support. And I think Tauruses are really good at supporting and being there and showing up and like, doing what they say. And if they're not going to do what they say, they will let you know and like send a card and like, make sure everything is right. And I think that this feels like it's all there for getting back on the, I use air quotes, right track of wherever it is you're trying to head. Cause it feels like, I feel like with Saturn there does, I know maybe it's the opposite of everything I just said. There does want to be some progress or like ground covered or like steps taken and made, whatever that is in your life. And maybe it's Mercury related things or Venus related things or both, since both are being activated by Saturn and Pisces that day.
I think also like we just talked about this too, but thinking of those as like sensitivity aspects too, of it being like, I don't know, receptive, but also noticing the phrase that keeps coming to my mind is like the patterns of like this, if this hurts your feelings, this builds on something else. So let's like be aware of how these things work together and how these inform our values, how these inform how we communicate to ourselves and others, and these sorts of things. I think of being like, when I'm kind to myself in this way, then I see this reflected out in this thing, and look how that builds or amplifies in both positive ways, or also if you have not been kind to yourself or others in your communication, or if you are, you know, trying to stave off any kind of like sensitivity or feeling in that way because it's so, you know, watery and all of that. I think that like allowing for that side of yourself to be accessed and cared for and like upheld.
Yeah, that just made me think of a new approach I've been having, which is very opposite my Taurus ass normally, which is usually when someone tells me something. Let's say someone's like, I love lemons, and I don't love lemons. I do love lemons, but for this, I don't. And I'd be like, oh, like you don't like lemons? But now I've been trying to do like so what about lemons do you like? Like to try to find, like, I don't know. I can take things Cancer Mars too so personally. And I've been having that with friends where they share things where I'm like, this is like red flaggy, or this is something that like I don't understand. But rather than be like, this is how I view it and I don't understand it, being like, so what about this are you into? Because like I need to like, I want to get to know more about what it is that is what about this is working for you, and I can share why this doesn't work for me, but that's not really what it's about, if that makes sense, in terms of get like, again, building ground or covering new territory if maybe the old approaches of communication, there's a lot happening with Mercury still retrograde, even though it's having the sextile to Saturn, so there is still that maybe doing a new approach or working a little backwards in your communication, doing a little algebra to find out or share information in a more softer Saturn Pisces sort of way.
It also makes me think of maybe where there have been like holes in communication getting a little bit filled in, or recognizing like, oh, this is something that I've been missing from my approach to this, or this is something that I've been wanting to hear from someone, and now I know how to ask for this thing, or now I see how this has been perpetuated and what holes it has created, and so now I know what I could do differently going forward, or what to watch for, ask for, etc.
Yeah. Ooh. Fill in those holes, baby.
Maybe.
Fill it with a lot of water is what I'm seeing, because there's a lot of water active. There's a lot of we're getting a lot of good watery emotional encouragement during this very earthy time.
It also makes me think of that, you know, Sun Uranus conjunction being feeling however change makes you feel. This could be immense gratitude, and it also could be like immense grief or something too, of noticing something. I don't know, just noticing those things and not necessarily putting a stop to them and having that easy, not necessarily enjoyable, but having some flow with those, and how that might help us to access some parts that we don't typically. And we have that you said it already.
Should we move forward?
Yes.
Well, and literally, because Mercury direct. Woo!
Yes.
That was so quick. Now you can tell everyone to fuck off again. Just kidding. Let's still we'll still be in the shadow, but that's May 14th.
14th. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I was just gonna say.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say we'll station direct at 5 degrees and 50 minutes of Taurus.
Yeah. Yes. And then following that, we have, I would say, one of the ones you're gonna see, unless anyone has anything before the 16th. One of the ones you're going to see.
We'll have Mars trying Neptune the day before. So a little more, again, we're getting lots. If it's water, it's trying to Neptune at some point. And as we move out of Mars and Cancer eventually, I think that's just, again, a nice going back to, we're constantly going back to feeling, aren't we, folks? That's been the Taurus theme. Even though Taurus not a feeler. It's Venus-y and very value based, but I think also allowing feeling to be and not having to force it. But yeah, but then the big shebang, and we'll have an episode on this too with Jupiter.
Yeah, I think one of the things you're going to see most astrologers talk about for Taurus season is going to be Jupiter entering Taurus. I think some episodes that might be fun to revisit for this transit would be our Jupiter return episode, or I think we did a like Jupiter and Saturn episode that might be fun to check back in with. Obviously our recent, did we do a Jupiter and Aries one? Might be a good one.
I think we did.
Yeah,
that might be a while ago because we had that retrograde and then came back. But yeah, Jupiter's been in Aries for a minute. No notes, been all right. I've been enjoying a lot, having consistent fire in the sky because we didn't have it for a long time, but now Jupiter and Taurus sounds just lovely.
I think thinking too of this Mercury retrograde also as like a preparation for Jupiter in Taurus. I know they are not necessarily related, but thinking of like cleaning up the thing before a grand coming out party kind of thing of being like, let's get our Taurus things in order because now this is going to be highlighted in a way that it wasn't before. And I think that that's kind of a nice, like, Mercury goes direct and Jupiter moves into Taurus at the same time of us. I don't know. I like it.
It's that thing of like sit in this energy for a little while before we like see this energy happening for a little while, and an intellectual component of like you're saying, getting ready for a party or something where it's what does it look like in this chair? Sit in this chair, and what does it feel like being at this party versus sitting in the other chair,
And how are we ready to grow and have things kind of amplified in this space of our chart as well? And I think again that kind of Mercury retrograde beforehand is like what are we cleaning out to make room for something new? Or maybe we are going, oh, this needs some attention. Where either way, both expansive and also like here's where we're going to maybe need some luck, some help, some forced amplification of us to kind of deal with whatever is in this sector.
Yeah, hopefully it's some good money stuff. We're all, I think, praying for that as a societal collective. But this is also from astrology.com. I think this is a very classic reminder for Taurus, but especially Jupiter and Taurus is about the journey and not the destination. So I think too of just really taking it in, and like, Aries does want to move through quickly and Taurus wants to maybe slow it down. So we are really having a shift in gears in terms of Jupiter energy. And the last week of Taurus season ends quite like it starts strong and it ends strong. I'm skipping a little ahead because we'll have the new moon at the end, but before that, we'll, like Lisa mentioned, when we have early degrees of Taurus stuff, we're gonna have early degree squares to Pluto. So the next day we'll have a square off with Pluto, which I don't know. I think Jupiter of wanting it big and Pluto being like reality check can feel very that when we have a square, but also maybe it's even just your attitude change or seeing something differently that might be like, why are you doing it like this? So I think with squares, it can, we naturally have that tension. So I think it might just have people, people might have to act a fool that day. You just never know when you have Pluto squaring off.
I think it's okay too, skipping ahead here because those planets move so slow. They're going to be within influence all the way through that new moon and all the way to when Mars enters Leo, and it forms quite this fixed square cross, and we have the nodes at 3 degrees while all the other planets I mentioned are at 0. So I think that day on the 20th, sure, there might be a big thing that day, but that stuff is within influence for the new moon on the 19th at 28 degrees of Taurus. I don't think it's making any direct aspects. No, it won't be to those 4. But
I also love that we're having the new moon in Taurus at the end of the month. I know it makes sense because we've had those two Aries. We had the eclipse at 29 Aries at the beginning of Taurus season, or right before Taurus season begins. But it is breaking in the pattern, I think, of we've seen so much of having that new moon at the beginning. And I really like that we have this new moon in Taurus at the end, post retrograde, post Jupiter moving into Taurus, that this really is like a definitive, to me, like we're being intentional about this Taurus stuff, and we're going to be getting a kind of boost from that. And I think even that square to Pluto energetically in the new moon chart, and also, like you said, Lisa, like that influence that we're going to be feeling for a bit, because they are slow moving planets, are that like not back to basics, but that like, I don't know, like it does, the process matters. It matters how we get there. And we can't kind of sacrifice any of those things on the way in order for like true transformation to occur. And some growth won't be possible because of like the future that we are building towards, but also this other kind of growth will be there as well too. And I think that like, this is definitely environmental considerations too, I think, as being something that is, like we cannot let tech grow so much that we forget about the earth, our home, and all of that stuff too. And I think that those energies are, I don't know, at play. I like that. I think that's interesting. And those like forces, yeah, I don't know. Those are great forces at work.
Yeah, it feels like having it at the end of the month, not having this in Mercury retrograde, like you said, having it supported by Jupiter and Taurus. It feels like y'all get a really good Taurus new moon at the end of this month. So I know it was like maybe slow moving or not what exactly imagined, or maybe things got revealed that we weren't, especially with the eclipses in the mix from earlier in the month that were early in the last 2 months that were a little, again, like we can't really, part of astrology is that we don't get to know it all, which I think is a cool part that astrology factors in, is like, we don't fucking know parts.
Well, there's something that's like hindsight is 2020, and this feels like you get some benefit of hindsight of like what you've learned about Taurus stuff through this retrograde, and now you get to set like how is that beneficial for setting intentions? I don't know.
Yeah, and I think the fixed earthy Taurus focal part with Jupiter enhancing is also, you don't need to just do whatever's been comfortable or what anyone else is doing. Like, yeah, I know you're the second sign Taurus after this first, like, ooh, Aries out of the box. Like, I'm doing me, but Taurus can still do you too. And I think that there's this real powerful end crescendo before we head into Gemini season, especially since we'll have on the 20th Mars move into Leo. So we'll have that last degrees of Cancer Mars for that new moon, which will still be big. Yeah, the chart for the new moon, I'm excited to talk about it once we get to that date, which again, we'll have all the new moons and full moons and eclipses episodes only on Patreon, patreon.com/What's Your Sign podcast for bonus episodes, Discord, and to support us. If you've been listening this far, like, Jesus Christ, you better get on Patreon, because that means you like us a little bit. But yeah, then we'll have Mars move into Leo.
And then the sun leaves almost at the stroke of midnight on the 21st. We'll leave Taurus, and that's our season.
That's it. That's her. So
yeah,
yes, full on. I think it will be. I'm into it. I feel like I've been saying this a lot recently. I'm like, I'm into it. This seems nice. We'll see. There's still so much new, as we referenced with Saturn Pisces. It's still a new flavor for us. Pluto Aquarius is still a new flavor. So we're getting a total new era of aspects than we've had the last few years. So we're learning. We're learning as we're going and seeing what we like and trying it on for ourselves. And, seeing, I think what Taurus is really good at is letting people know when they're uncomfortable or when things aren't feeling right. So, or if it's like not the best thing, and not best doesn't have to be in that perfectionist, like unattainable way, but like, can we upgrade this? Can we have, I mean, God, this was me booking hotels today with Papa, where I'm like, this one faces this view, like, and it was the same cheap motel vibe, but like there's this, like, can we enhance something that we're doing? And I think Taurus can really do a good job at doing that sort of stuff. If I'm not blowing my own Taurus horn, which I am, because that's what Tauruses do, baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then no eclipses for the fall until the fall. So then we're just moving through space and time. But that's it.
Let's do it.
I'm in. Happy Taurus season, specifically to Lisa Chanou and
That's right.
specifically to myself and to all the Taurus lovers out there. You know, it's a good time. So enjoy yourself.
If there's
Stand up for
ever a
yourself.
moment to sit back and savor, Taurus season's got to be it.
Take it all in. Now, like I feel like it's good. Like you don't need a hard out, we can just maybe set some times for a little openness and a little time to just be.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll see you
Yes.
next week.
See you next
Bye.
Monday. Bye.
Bye.